What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like, subscribe as you tune in and you check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on LeBron James and the recent interview he gave to Steve Nash, right? And so LeBron James tried to explain away, like the season and how they came up short. And I find that nowadays, or not just nowadays, when you dealing with the media, no matter what you say, the media can really, they can interpret what you say any way they want to, right? So I like those old school guys who just believe that less is more. You do have to do the interviews with the media and stuff like that, not necessarily the podcast, but when you try to spin the narrative your way, people gonna push back on that. So that's why I say the best, in my opinion, the best way to do it is less is more. When you have guys, old school guys like Bill Belichick, who really don't say a whole lot to the media, or somebody like who Tom Brady, who they'll give you generic answers and stuff like that, right? Because when you're going against the media, you're fighting a battle you can't win. It's an uphill battle, and it's a battle that you can't win, and you can be tied up in that all day. So you can't be. LeBron James thinks that he could put a spin on things, and people are going to go for it, and it just keeps backfiring on him. And I don't know how long it's going to be before LeBron James learn that less, in my opinion, less is more. Michael Jordan he still don't even do a ton of interviews, right? Because they know when you're dealing with the media, things can be interpreted certain ways, and then certain things that these guys are just not going to talk about. They know how to handle the media, and in my opinion, less is more. So, but what I want to do is I want to play what's the guy named Scap Attack, right? And he reacted to LeBron James interview with Steve Nash, and I want to play his take just as an example of how no matter what you say, to the media, it can get turned around. Now, not saying that I agree with what LeBron James was saying, or not even saying that I agree with what Scat was saying, but it's just giving you two different perspectives of what can happen. How different one message can be interpreted different ways.
Well, LeBron James went on his latest revisionist podcast episode of Mind the Game with bootlicker Steve Nash to discuss the season that was for his LA Lakers. A 4-2 series win against the Houston Rockets in a series where the Rockets were missing three starters, including Hall of Famer Kevin Durant. Yeah, in that series, LeGoat was just doing LeGoat things, obviously. Well, because they won, of course. Don't you worry, though, about the three starters missing for the Rockets during that series. In the Thunder series, though, where the Lakers got swept, well, that one wasn't LeBron's fault at all.
And also, I don't think these podcasts are not really doing LeBron James a favor. I can see if LeBron James, I didn't see, and it was a different era, so I'm not even gonna compare Kobe Bryant, because Kobe Bryant really didn't do podcasts or interviews and stuff like that, more so until like he retired, right? So, but I don't think that these podcasts really do a service to current. Like if you're playing like Paul George, he get a lot of pushback from his podcast, right? Also, Draymond Green, I don't think having a podcast during your career is a good idea.
That one, they, of course, just got out talented because they were totally killing it prior to the injuries, of course.
And then we hit a really good streak when I came back after my last few games out where I fit into a role that our team needed. Luka was playing at an MVP level. AR was playing at an all-star level, and we were just on fire. We were winning games. We were defending at a high level. We was one of the best offensive teams in the league, one of the top 10 defensive teams in the league. So, you know, it was a great, you know, up until that point was great. And then obviously like a week before the playoffs, everyone kind of know what happened. You know, Luka goes out with the hamstring, AR goes out with the oblique. And, you know, we are heading into the playoffs with two of our biggest guns not playing.
Pay no attention.
Now, see, it right there, it just sounds like LeBron James is making excuses. You know, and then see, that's where the pushback come from, because you had just have so many people who would use that as ammunition against LeBron James and an opportunity to push back on LeBron James. So in that situation, like, and he's not being dishonest when he said that Luka went down and Austin Reeves went down. But nobody's seen them as, even if those guys was healthy, people didn't really see them going too deep into the playoffs, right? And the fact that Houston had 3 players out, you know, really fell into LeBron James' favor and helped, you know, the Lakers out. So people are going to be honest about that. That's why I said, you know, even if that was the case, LeBron James, you don't want to be, and I'm just not used to seeing athletes make up, you know, like if they don't bring these kind of things up, they don't talk about injuries, you know, they'll say, you know, we lost, we gave it our best shot, you know, we ran into a tough opponent, something generic and basic. If everybody know that you're not healthy and you got players missing, then they'll say that. But if you say it, then it makes it look like you're making excuses. And so that's why I say, in my opinion, it's just less is better.
None whatsoever, to the April 2nd biblical annihilation at the hands of the Oklahoma City Thunder when the LA Lakers were relatively at full health, well, for at least the first half of that game. The Thunder were up 44-21 at the end of the first quarter, a 23-point lead after one. It was a 31-point lead at halftime and 45 at the end of 3. And yes, Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves both got hurt during that game, but would it have really made a difference in the playoffs? Likely not. Though LeBron thinks that his season was a success, and ultimately everyone can't be a winner every year. Am I right, Braun?
But at the end of the day, there's 29 teams, if that's the case, who are all failures, if that's always the narrative.
Right.
Because it's only one champion, you know, every year. So, you know, I have the passion and the admiration to host the Larry O'Brien Trophy up every single year, but I also have a realization of, you know, what particular team I have been a part of in that particular year.
Yeah, because.
All right, so let me just say something about that comment that LeBron James made, that every year you have 29 teams who don't win it. So those people look at those 29 teams as a failure, right? Which I don't agree. And, you know, so when you have somebody, take for instance, somebody like Charles Barkley or Karl Malone, who they never won a championship, right? And so people don't look at their careers as failure. You know, like both of those guys are great basketball players. And people always say, well, who was the best player to not win a championship? And so those two names come up. You get Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, Patrick Ewing is in the, you know, those are some of the best players in history to have never won a championship. But those guys also never made excuses when they came up short. You know, they didn't talk about what their injuries were, who on their team wasn't there, or any shortcomings or anything. You know, they just never made excuses. They just went out and just tried to get better or put themselves in a position to do better the next time. And so this right here, what LeBron James is doing, is different from what everybody else has done in the past, but it's an example of why they never did it, why it don't work, why you need to, as an athlete, give, you know, you need to give less information. And so, you know, sometimes you have to give information. You have to talk about situations, but you don't have to do a podcast, number one. You don't have to, because podcasts make it seem like he's trying to put his own spin on it. And the way you put your own spin on your career is going out there and putting in that work and just letting your fans talk for you and letting your actions speak for you, not through having a podcast and trying to persuade people when people can see what's going on out there. And so they definitely going to give some pushback.
Bron, after all, is the ultimate competitor, but wants everyone to know they just really couldn't compete this season.
You know, understanding this year, you know, we fought and we played it to the maximum ability of our team. But ultimately, you know, if we're being completely honest, we were out talented.
So, yeah, look, don't worry about that 4-0 sweep job, which makes him the second most swept Hall of Famer of all time. Not only concern yourselves with the playoff series win, but again, don't worry about the 3 starters that were out for the Houston Rockets. No context at all whatsoever on the one that they won. Only context on the one that LeBron lost.
Yeah, I think that also it might seem like LeBron James is trying to, number one, trying to sway public opinion, and then number two, maybe trying to convince the Lakers organization that the only reason why they fell short is because Luka and Austin wasn't there, and then so maybe things would have been different. I don't know if Lakers organization is going to go for that, but that might have been his one of the things that was on his mind. But I don't, in my opinion, I don't think either one of them are working. I don't think public is buying into what LeBron James is saying. At least most people are not. And then on top of that, I don't think the Lakers organization is going to buy it. But I think that is what they're going to try to sell next year for bringing LeBron James back. The fact that Austin was out, Luka was out, and maybe they'll do better next year. You know, some kind of way they're going to put a spin on it. So we'll see what happens, though. But I just think that when players try to compete with the media, they are always going to come up short. You know, I don't care how many burner phones you have or what, you know, if you have a podcast, it don't matter. I just think players are going to come up short. So that's my take on it. Make sure to like, subscribe to the channel. And with that being said, I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.